Welcome to The Know, I'm Ashley Jenkins.
And I'm Gus Sorola.
After EA got our hopes up and then dashed them about a possible remaster of the Mass Effect series, it looks like a different BioWare favorite could still be on the table over at Electronic Arts.
Apparently, the classic RPG Knights of the Old Republic might be making its way out of retirement. According to new rumors, a remake of the first Knights of the Old Republic game from BioWare is in the works as a possible console exclusive.
Unfortunately, the game seems to be held up in the weird world of video game development limbo, and part of the reason you still can't play it is because of Star Wars Battlefront.
Okay, always the whipping boy. This story comes from writer Jordan Mason at Cinelinx, who first reported the possibility of a KOTOR remake a whole year ago. And per his sources, there are a few things that have changed since he first wrote about it.
Now, as for why the rumor may be credible, but for now it is just a rumor, Mason claims that the information from both last year's report and the updated report comes from multiple sources. One of those sources is the same one who fed him word a year ago about Star Wars Battlefront's upcoming Rogue One DLC, which wasn't announced until recently, so that's spot on and hopefully a reliable source.
But back to the original report, last year Mason wrote that 3 separate sources had confirmed to him that Knights of the Old Republic would be getting remade for current generation, not a remaster or a refresh, but a full-on remake. His sources also told him the game would be announced at the end of 2015 with a targeted release window of Q3 or Q4 of this year.
Yeah, so this rumor was sort of flimsily supported by a number of questionably linked occurrences, like Microsoft sending a cease and desist order to Rum Runner Entertainment, a team of modders working on their own remaster of KOTOR. Plus, Phil Spencer made a tweet a couple years back indicating he'd like to see a remake appear on Xbox One.
Yeah, what Phil wants, Phil gets.
I hope so, because he likes good stuff.
Yes. At the time, Mason said he was hesitant to actually report on the rumors, as things in the video game industry are much more in a state of constant flux than they are in, say, the film business.
Oh, come on! Things in the film business are always in flux.
Yeah, but a Marvel Cinematic Universe, they can plan out years in advance and tell you. And it's minor changes, but it's not nearly like the video game industry.
Yeah, okay, fine. You have a point.
Yeah, things change all the time, and we've seen how even announced games can take a backseat when priorities shift and then turn into total vaporware.
Like the possibly teased again yesterday Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, since we obviously haven't gotten an announcement about KOTOR Remake for an entire year since that initial report, it looks like that rumor was either fake or that things changed, as they so often do.
And according to Mason, that's exactly what happened. In his new report, Mason writes that his sources claim that the KOTOR remake is still underway. It's just in stasis at the moment, thanks to a number of mitigating factors.
One of those factors is console exclusivity. It seems that while KOTOR is currently playable on both Xbox One and PS4, there's quite a bit of back and forth between EA, BioWare, Sony, and Microsoft over console exclusivity. Mostly it's Microsoft in particular that wants KOTOR to be on Xbox One, and they're fighting incredibly hard for exclusivity there.
Are they using their secret tactic?
I hope so.
That would certainly make sense considering KOTOR was a huge exclusive for the original Xbox. It was one of those early titles that showed the console actually had potential for new IPs and interesting titles rather than just being an American manufactured Halo machine.
The new report states that the other cause for KOTOR's delay into the current generation was none other than everyone's favorite EA game to hate on, Star Wars Battlefront, and that's because EA was not happy with Battlefront's launch.
In terms of hard sales numbers, yes, EA was pleased enough. It's hard not to be thrilled when your game moves 14 million units total, but in terms of engagement, that's an area where EA was extremely disappointed, hoping for fans to spend more time in the game. That might sound weird on the surface, but engagement is quickly becoming a much more important long-term metric for developers and publishers. Sure, the sale gets you a player $60, but engagement determines whether or not you can keep getting more money from them over time.
And really, that's what everyone wants. There's more money from us. It's all the DLC
That's how they see us.
Season passes
walking
and
wallets.
so on and so forth. And also, if you keep the game, you don't resell it, and then someone else can't buy your copy. That's the way EA wants it. That's the EA way, and they're sticking to it. EA's concern over Battlefront's initial reception reportedly led them to divert a huge number of company resources over to further Battlefront content, which affected the teams who would have been working on Knights of the Old Republic.
And lastly, the final reason that KOTOR Remake is supposedly being left in temporary carbonite is a recent EA shift away from its past. According to the sources from this new report, there's headbutting afoot within EA over a new company push to be forward-looking, which would unfortunately leave remasters and remakes on the drawing board.
I mean, they have gone on record in the past saying that they're not terribly interested in remakes and remasters. Well, specifically HD remakes, which is why the Mass Effect one has been having some trouble. Because remember, EA kind of like confirmed and then unconfirmed all in the span of, what was it, like a week or two? Maybe a couple of weeks. Back in August, EA's Patrick Sutherland all but said that EA would be pursuing a remastered trilogy for the series, and then those comments were clarified by Peter Moore, who said, no, we just feel like we want to go forward. So that's like that in a nutshell, really.
Some of that, no doubt, has to do with the company's stated focus to put players first. In the last couple of weeks, they've actually commented on some of the criticisms they received in the past, with Peter Moore talking fairly candidly about when EA was voted as the worst company in America back in 2013.
Weren't they voted worst company in America a couple of times?
Were they?
Like in a row,
Weird.
I think. Yeah.
Moore says they've taken those kinds of things and others to heart, and they have a new resolve and initiative that puts players first.
So, what do we make of this rumor? It's not entirely unthinkable when you consider all of the factors involved. For one, EA has the Star Wars license for basically the next decade, although that's ticking down. And we already know they're working on a bunch of other properties as well with the franchise.
But on the flip side, it's now on record that they're actively distancing themselves from some of the games in the past and aren't as interested in re-releasing old games for a quick buck. We know hearing EA and a quick buck in the same sentence should mean that they're keen to do it, but that may not be the case here.
Right, they're turning over a whole new leaf. Plus, there's the issue of Star Wars canon, which is all kinds of messy now that Disney has taken the reins. We know that KOTOR has been folded into the Legends series, which is the old non-canon now extra universe stuff. However, they've still continued to release some Legends material, so it's not entirely out of the question they could do this to re-canonize some
And they
of
could
it.
bring it back. I mean, like, Admiral Thrawn from the Thrawn trilogy was put into Legends, and now he's being pulled back into canon via the
Exactly.
Rebels TV series. So, I mean, let's temper our expectations.
Or
It's
at
possible.
the very least, they could take some elements from
Right.
KOTOR and make a new imagining of that sort of universe.
There's also another matter here, and it's one of the same reasons why EA is probably scared of releasing Mass Effect remasters. KOTOR could be seen as a pretty natural competitor to Mass Effect Andromeda, although that hasn't stopped them in other areas, with Titanfall and Battlefield coming out in the same month.
Yeah, so we'll just have to see if this rumor plays out. If the game is real and playable, we can't imagine it being left out in deep space for too long, especially because sitting on a Star Wars game might not be the best business move in the current climate that's going nuts over the franchise. You want that sweet, sweet money.
What do you guys think of this rumor that a KOTOR remake is in the works but currently in a holding pattern? Do you want EA to bring it out of Carbonite? Let us know in the comments.
Guys, we should put together a change.org petition. For future updates on all things Star Wars, Legends, or otherwise, make sure you like this video and subscribe to The Know.
What are the numbers, Mason? I tried to work that in at some point. I just couldn't do it. It never played out. Headbutting is a weird word. It's like butt heading, right?
Well, they're
Like I pictured a butt on
Just
someone's
a bunch
head.
of butts,
Yeah,
like-
a butt like
pooping back and forth forever.
forever.